So for today's training, we're going to talk about one of our pajamas brand of service. So in our previous GAs, we have talked of relationship and options. So today is communications. Sa mga susunod natin na GA, we have commitment, humility, extra positivity, and relentlessness. So why are we having this series of trainings? No? Yes, we hear you. Dinote natin to sa feedback and survey form natin na we wanted trainings like this so we can be equipped with knowledge and learnings. But what is more important is we are having this para ma-instill sa bawat isa sa atin yung company's MVB or mission, visions, and beliefs. And of course, yung values that we should have as an SJC employee. So I hope at the end of this series of training, we can have a quick reflection and realizations of ourselves. Are we living the values of SJC? Yan. So communication. Sabi nga ng NUS, communication opens opportunities. Communication resolves problems. But how? How can this work? Okay. So this training will help us understand the importance of communication, identify barriers to effective communication and how to overcome them, communicate effectively, and apply within ourselves how can we become good communicators. So what is communication? Communication is a process of exchanging information, ideas, thoughts, feelings, emotions between a sender and recipient through speech, signals, writing, and behavior. So communication is the sharing or exchange of information. All individuals, groups, and organizations communicate by sharing meaning between each other. It is a two-way process. It is also about being understood and belonging to a group. So this is the communication process. No, the message coming from the source or the sender is being transferred to the receiver through a channel. So why do we communicate? Although people communicate for many reasons, the ultimate purpose is to create a shared perspective between two or more people. Also, when we communicate with others, we are usually trying to influence other people's understanding, their behaviors, and their attitudes. Communicating allows people to exchange information that can influence how we think and feel about one another and our environment. We communicate in order to give or provide information. We communicate seeking information. Also, communicating ensures effective team working and continuity of care. So communication and organizational success are directly related. But then, communication can be a good or a bad thing. Diba? When we are not able to deliver properly and effectively our message, it can lead to strong negative consequences such as distortion of goals and objectives, conflict, loss of motivation, and poor performance. For example, we are on the verge of extreme emotions like hatred. So, we tend to speak our hearts out. Usually, ganun yung nangyayari. So, communication can be a bad thing. So, it is important that we know how to communicate effectively. What is effective communication? It is a process of exchanging ideas, thoughts, knowledge, and information such that the purpose or intention is fulfilled in the best possible manner. So in simple words, it is nothing but the presentation of views by the sender in a way best understood by the receiver. It is about understanding the emotion, yung intentions behind the information, as well as being able to clearly convey a message. You need to also listen in a way that gains the full meaning of what is being said and makes the other person feel heard and understood. So we have to remember that good communication starts with listening. Many of us think that communication is talking, and talk we do, diba? We interact, we advise, we reassure, we judge, we analyze, criticize, argue, we moralize, we threaten, we divert, we diagnose, etc., etc. But good communication requires good listening as well as talking. In fact, kaya nga siguro we have 2 years and only 1 month. Listening just might be the more important skill. So to be a good listener, we must first pay attention. Okay. Active listening. Active listening means it is, as the name suggests, it is actively listening. That is fully concentrating on what's being said rather than just passively hearing the message of the speaker. So it involves listening with all senses. It is not only consciously engaging in listening and being encouraging, but it also requires deferring judgment, letting the sender complete their point before asking questions. So there are times, di ba, na kapag nagkikwento sa atin yung kausap natin, because we're actively listening, we tend to interrupt them and share our own experiences. So that could be good or bad. Of course, we also have to consider the timing, no, nung kinakwento natin. We have to ensure that we are interested with what he or she is talking or saying. Because we do not listen so we can talk, we listen so we can understand. Ayan. So, tignan natin yung pictures na 'to. Ayan. 'Di ba when we are speaking and someone is not paying attention, what do we feel? We feel annoyed, frustrated, rejected, anxious, or angry. Such feelings usually make communication more difficult. So, we can show to someone who is speaking that we really are paying attention to them. We can do this both done verbally and verbally. Ayan. So here are the nonverbal signs of attentive or active listening. So sabi nga sa research, it shows that about 85% of what we communicate is nonverbal. So this includes our posture, our physical movements, eye contact, and our psychological presence. So when someone is speaking to you, is your posture inclined toward the speaker or as to invite and encourage expression, or is your back turned or your arms are tightly crossed, which discourages and cuts off involvement? Or are you squirming, fidgeting, or otherwise distracting the speaker or yourself? Are we making good eye contact with the person? So by looking and observing the speaker, not only will the speaker feel attended to, you will learn more about what is really important to him. Finally, we cannot pretend to pay attention by employing these physical techniques without also being psychologically present. We can't fake interest, sabi nga. So the speaker will know if our hearts and minds are not really there. So one of the nonverbal signs is smile. Small smiles can be used to show that the listener is paying attention to what is being said or as a way of agreeing or being happy about the messages being received. So yung mga simpleng pagnod or pag-smile, 'di ba? That can be powerful in affirming that the messages are being listened to and understood. Eye contact, no? It is normal and usually encouraging for the listener to look at the speaker, Eye contact can, however, be intimidating, especially dun sa mga shy speakers. So we have to gauge how much eye contact is appropriate for any given situation. Posture. So it can tell a lot about the sender and receiver in interpersonal interactions. The attentive listener tends to lean slightly forward or sideways while sitting. Other signs of active listening may include a slight slant of the head or resting the head on one hand. Next is mirroring. So, yung mga automatic reflection or mirroring of any facial expressions used by the speaker can also be a sign of attentive listening. For example, nagkikwento siya about bankruptcy ng business niya, and yet we are smiling. So, can we say that we are actively listening? Diba? So, through mirroring, we can show empathy and sympathy in more emotional situation. Next is distraction. So, the active listener will not be distracted and therefore will refrain from looking at the clock or watch, doodling, playing with their hair, or picking their fingernails. So, here are the verbal signs naman of attentive or active listening. Positive reinforcement. It is a it is good that we say very good, indeed, yes. Pero if we say it frequently, it can also become irritating to the speaker. It's usually better to elaborate and explain why you are agreeing with a certain point. Next is remembering. So remembering a few key points or even the name of the speaker can help to reinforce that the messages sent have been received and understood. It may be appropriate to make very brief notes to act as a memory jog when questioning or clarifying later. Questioning. So the listener can demonstrate that they have been paying attention by asking relevant questions or making statements that build or help to clarify what the speaker has said. By asking relevant questions, the listener also helps to reinforce that they have an interest in what the speaker has been saying. Clarification. So, when we are clarifying something, it involves asking questions of the speaker to ensure that the correct message has been received. No? Clarification also involves the use of open questions, which enables the speaker to expand or on certain points as necessary. Next is summarization. So, repeating a summary of what has been said back to the speaker is a technique used by the listener to repeat what has been said in their own words. So, in summarizing, kukunin lang naman natin yung mga main points ng na-receive nating message and reiterating them in a logical and clear way, giving the speaker chance to correct if necessary. Let us remember that communication is key to successful relationships, and active listening is key to successful communication. There are characteristics of effective communication. So, clear message, correct message, complete, precise message, reliability, consideration of the recipient, and yung sender's courtesy. Okay. So, we have here an example. Sabi dyan, after our perusal of pertinent data, the conclusion is that a lucrative market exists for the subject property. Next example is the data we studied show that your property is profitable and in high demand. So pag titignan natin tong examples, sa first example, we can see that it is a bit wordy and complex. So hindi natin mako-convey ng maayos yung gusto nating sabihin. On the second circle naman, we used simple words and vocabulary or yung mga layman's terms. So this is way understandable than the first one. So it is important that we deliver our message with clarity. So para maging clear yung message natin, we can use simple or familiar words and phrases. We use appropriate expressions and references. We avoid jargon or yung mga unfamiliar acronyms or expressions. We explain yung mga complex terms and ideas. We use concrete examples. We use comparisons. We arrange words so that the main idea occurs early in a sentence. So the message which the sender wants to convey must be simple, easy to understand, and systematically framed to retain its meaningfulness. Kasi no matter how long yung sentence natin, pero hindi siya clear, still it will not make sense. Okay. Dito naman sa next natin example. Dear David, further to our conservation today, I am attaching the plan for the first stage of the project. Hope the 1 week deadline is okay with you and your team. So I hope hindi lang tayo nakikinig, no? But tinitignan din natin yung example dito sa screen. So makikita natin dito na we used the wrong word sa conservation and yung wrong word then for week. So instead of conversation, dito ginamit is conservation. And yung weak is ginamit dito is weak as in mahina, diba? So wrong choice of words. Ayan. Dito naman sa isa pang example, sa left side, sabi dyan, let's eat dad. Dito sa kabila, ganun din, let's eat with comma, tapos dad. So we can say na kulang yung punctuation dito sa left, and this may convey a different meaning as well. So kung wala siyang comma, pwede na, ang meaning niya is, kainin natin yung tatay natin, di ba? Ganun siya, let's eat dad. But with comma, we are saying na, dad, kumain na tayo, parang ganun siya. So, we have to consider then and to check if nailalagay ba natin na tama yung mga punctuations. Okay, so the information communicated must not be vague or false in any sense. It must be free from errors and grammatical mistakes. So we should use proper grammar, punctuations, and spellings. We have to use yung right level of language then. We should check accuracy of figures, facts, and words, and maintain acceptable writing mechanics. Yes, I believe na grammars and vocabularies ay, kumbaga hindi naman siya sukatan ng katalinuhan. But to effectively communicate, we need to consider this as this may convey different meaning. Especially tayo na may mga clients na foreigner, di ba? Okay. Another example. Sabi dito sa unang circle, hi all, let us meet tomorrow to discuss the product launch event. Please be there on time. So, ano ba yung mali dito? Pag tinignan natin, tama naman siya, di ba? Pero, meron siyang kulang. So, on the first sample, wala siyang sinabing time, location, or agenda. Although, he is requesting a meeting, pero wala siyang specific na time, location, agenda na binanggit. So, we can improve this by saying ito, let us meet tomorrow at 11 a.m. at conference room 3 to discuss the product launch event. We will have to decide the keynote speakers and complete the event. Invite draft tomorrow. Please be there on time. Which is better. So communication is the basis for decision making. If the information is incomplete, it may lead to wrong decisions. So para maging complete, we have to remember yung 5 W's. You have to answer all questions and give extra information when desirable. So, for example, sige, bigay kong example siguro yung sa'min as, auditor. So, sa audit procedures namin nilalagay natin yung, na-receive natin na confirmation letter. Pero di natin nilalagay na may variance pala na above materiality level. So, we render unqualified opinion which is supposed to be qualified. So, we made wrong decisions because we failed to communicate it effectively. Ayan. So, dito sa first example, it says, I think we need to talk about the CSR campaign. I mean, the one which we need to do as a quarterly exercise. I think it is a great way of enhancing our brand image because it would just be a visit to an orphanage, but we can sort of do other things too. For instance, we could take the kids out for a short trip to a nearby park or zoo. Let us sit and talk tomorrow. Dito naman sa kabilang circle, it says, I need to discuss the quarterly CSR campaign with you. Let us take the kids out this time to a nearby park or zoo instead of just visiting them. This will help enhance our brand image. We will talk in detail tomorrow. So people more often tend to write 4 sentences in a place where they could have finished the message in 2 sentences. So pag tinignan natin kung examples, sobrang naging mahaba yung first example kaysa dito sa second example. So this may waste the time of the sender and the receiver and in turn limits their productivity too. So furthermore, try not to add fillers such as I mean, sort of. For instance, basically, kung pwede naman natin siyang tanggalin, tanggalin natin siya. Your message needs to be accurate, to the point, and crisp na. Okay. The message sent must be short and concise to facilitate straightforward interpretation and take the desired steps. So, para maging precise yung message, we can use one word in place of phrases, one sentence in place of two, read out loud to listen wordiness. Omit wordiness and outdated expressions. Let us ask, is the material relevant? Look for a necessary repetition. Does the same word or idea repeat too often? So, say what you have to say in fewest possible words without sacrificing your qualities. Complete without being wordy. Next characteristic is reliability. We must be sure from the sender, we must be sure from his end and whatever he's conveying is right by his knowledge. Even the receiver must have trust on the sender and can rely on the message sent. By creating an atmosphere of trust in a conversation or text, you add credibility to the message. So, ma-achieve natin yun by a clear, striking tone which indicates that the information you are discussing contains the right information. So, this is often supported by factual materials such as research data and figures. So, nothing is left to the imagination. So, on the first circle, it says, I am delighted to announce that we will be extending our hours to make shopping more convenient. On the second circle, it says, you will be able to shop evenings with the extended hours. So, as a speaker, we have to focus on how receivers will benefit. What will they receive? What they want or they need to know. Diba dito sa unang circle or sa unang example, sinasabi lang na we are extending hours to make shopping more convenient. Dito sa pangalawang example, sinasabi niya na parang ang pinaka-focus niya is yung mabe-benefit ng receiver, which is makakapag-shop siya ng evenings dahil dun sa extended hours. Ayan. Dito rin, it is impossible to open an account for you today. Sa second circle naman, as soon as your signature card reaches us, we will gladly open an account for you. Diba? So, pareho lang naman siya na hindi siya makakapag-open ng account ngayon, pero nag-iiba yung interpretation dito sa dalawang examples. So, consciously, we have to use positive words so that the readers or yung listener or receiver will react more favorably. So, dyan papasok yung consideration na isa sa characteristics din ng effective communication. The medium of communication and other physical settings must be planned, keeping in mind the attitude, language, knowledge, educational level, and position of the receiver. So, we have to handle the matter from their point of view, called as you attitude. We have to focus on you instead of I and we. We have to show audience benefit and interest in the receiver and emphasize positive, pleasant facts. Pwede rin natin i-tailor yung message natin to our audience. No? Example, yung paggamit ng mga argumentations and examples which are relevant to their experience makes it easier for them to process the contents. Ayan. So, on the first column, stupid letter, I can't understand any of it. Clearly, you did not read my latest facts. I wrote that letter 3 times. The point was clear. So, dito, pag tinignan natin siya, it's tactless, it is blunt. Ito naman sa kabila, it is my understanding that I did not get what you mean. Sometimes my wording is not precise. Let me try again. I'm sorry the point was not clear. Here is another version. So, dito mapapakita natin yung isa pang characteristic which is courtesy. We have to be sincerely tactful, thoughtful, and appreciative in delivering our message. No? We have to use expression that show respect and choose non-discriminatory expressions. We have to be careful in using language. We also should be aware of gender, race, and color. So, we added here yung timely communication. Timely communication is not just about minutes and hours. So, when communication is timely, we cannot make the most of every opportunity. We can make the most of every opportunity. It affords them the needed time to plan and analyze the information. Timely communication can therefore be said to help organizations make the most of every opportunity through informed decision making. For example, may nag-ask sa atin ng proposals or maritime mga inquiries. So, that is an opportunity. We have to timely communicate sa prospect client natin. Siguro, I can give an example. Yung isa sa mga clients natin, pinili nila tayong service provider simply because we replied as fast as we can. And we even communicate during weekends or holidays. No? Kasi need na need nila. So, timing is everything in life and most certainly in selling. So, it's best to be proactive with communication. And if you owe someone a response, do it sooner rather than later. If you are slow to respond to questions and communication, it will be difficult to develop trust as prolonged responses may seem to imply that you are taking action without informing the customer what you are doing. Timing is especially important when you are communicating a negative response or bad news. So don't put it off. Do it as soon as possible and give your customer the benefit of complete information. But then, there are barriers of communication. Physical barriers. Yung examples yung environment, yung distance, medium. So, physical barriers may prevent an individual from being able to interpret non-verbal cues. Siyempre, kasi hindi naman natin sila kasama or nakikita. So, this is more common in communicating methods relying on technology rather than face-to-face. Ito na yung mga examples, yung mga old or broken equipment used for communication, yung mga uncomfortable temperatures, background noise, yung poor lightning, communicating close to the time of your break, lunch, or end of work hours, large work areas, or yung work in an area that is physically separated from colleagues, like what we have now, mga closed doors, large geographic distances between the sender and the receiver. Communication issues usually easier over shorter differences. Okay. So, how can we solve it? No, yung physical barriers. Ayan. We can rearrange yung office areas. Like for example, pwede nating pagsama-samahin yung mga related na departments kung meron tayong malaking office, di ba? So, we can rearrange yung office areas natin. Yung emails, we can use messaging apps, di ba? Para mas maging mabilis din yung communication natin. We can use video conferencing tools if we are working remotely, di ba? And then project management tools then. So, project management tool, with so much information to keep track of, no? Project management tools have become increasingly popular on teams and in industries where they weren't previously used. Instead of gathering huge groups of people into long drawn-out status meetings to keep track of complex projects, project management tools automate tracking and give visibility to every team member. So teams can now stay informed in real time about assignments and progress of different team members within their organization instead of having to wait for the next weekly catch-up. Kaya din tayo sa SJC ngayon, we are having yung ng project management tools para ma-clear din yung one of the barriers ng communication. Next barrier that we have is psychological barriers. Anger, pride, anxiety. So there are various mental and psychological issues that may be barriers to effective communication. Some people have stage fear. Some have speech disorders, may phobia, depression, etc. All of these conditions are very difficult to manage sometimes and will most certainly limit the ease of communication. The psychological state of the receiver will influence how the message is received. For example, if someone has personal worries and is stressed, they may be preoccupied by personal concerns and not as receptive to the message as they were not stressed. Stress management is an important personal skill that affects our interpersonal relationships. Anger is another example of a psychological barrier to communication. When we are angry, it is easy to say things that we may later regret. Diba? And also to misinterpret what others are saying. More generally, people with low self-esteem may be less assertive and therefore may not feel comfortable communicating. They may feel shy about saying how they really feel or read negative subtext into messages they hear. So, paano natin siya ma-cure? When you are feeling angry, we have to remove ourselves from the situation for a bit to give ourselves time to cool off. So, kumbaga magpalamig muna tayo. We have to remember, while you're still angry, you are likely have trouble processing logical statements. If you remove yourself long enough to calm yourself down and reassess, you'll get a much clearer picture of what is going on. When you come back, you'll be able to communicate more clearly and make better decisions. When you're feeling anxious naman, sometimes anxiety is small, like the kind you feel right before a big presentation, diba? Simple relaxation techniques are likely enough to override this anxiety and get you up on stage feeling confident. Relaxation exercises are the simplest way for anyone to start better managing their anxiety. However, sometimes anxiety is overwhelming, like when you avoid the company holiday party because being around too many people makes it feel like it's hard to breathe, diba? If anxiety truly interferes with your ability to perform at work and in your personal life, a mental health professional, of course, can help you address these issues with more in-depth practice and reframing exercises. So we have here yung mga solutions para sa psychological barrier. Emotional management. So to be successful, we have to uh, invest in our internal growth and personal development. Diba? You have to be your own best manager. When mistakes happen, deal with the emotional consequences. Mistakes are the first steps in learning what has to change within you to achieve emotional balance and self-management. The better your self-knowledge, the more successful you will be. So, relaxation techniques can help, di ba? Yung pag-meditate, breathe deeply. So, next is yung slow down and reach out. So, when we are having uh, psychological problems or issues, no, it is important that we reach out, di ba? We have our closest friends, we have our mentors, we have our family. So, we can reach out. No? We can tell them na uh, ano yung na-feel natin or ano yung emotions natin or ano yung na-feel natin because they could help us. Next barrier is language barrier. So this is perhaps the most common and the most inadvertent barriers to communication. Using big words, too much of technical jargon, or even using just the wrong language at the incorrect or inopportune time can lead to a loss or misinterpretation of communication. So it may have sounded right in your head and your ears as well, but it sounded um, not good to others. So the purpose is lost. We can simplify things for other persons to understand us and think about it this way. If we are trying to explain something scientific to a child, we have to tone it down and their thinking capacity without numbing anything down in the process. Also, isa pa yung sa language barrier is yun nga yung differences ng languages natin. Diba? Next is the perceptual barriers. Perceptual filters. The personal preferences, values, attitudes, origins, and life experiences that create the filters through which we view our other people, events, and information. Triggers and cues. These are the nonverbal clues such as yung body language and facial gestures that affect how people perceive what we say. Ayan. Katulad nga nung nasa illustration natin, di ba? Meron tayong mga sinasabi na iba yung nagiging interpretation ng um, listener or nung receiver ng message. So, paano natin siya masosolve? Yan. Challenge your own assumptions. Instead of assuming your reasoning for feeling one way is correct, even it has been before, let us try to examine how people and situations around us might be interpreted differently if they were looked at from someone else's point of view. We also have to practice positive body language. So, the nonverbal aspects of your interactions with others, such as posture, eye contact, and body stance can communicate a lot about how confident, interested, or engaged you are in a conversation or topic. Because body language can be easily influenced by stress or tiredness, no? It is important that you stay in tune with how your physical behaviors can be misinterpreted. So we have to practice positive body language when communicating with others to ensure that you aren't unintentionally disrespecting those around you or sending a wrong message. How can we become a good communicator? Okay, so we have here some techniques, no, na pwede nating magamit para maging good communicator tayo. As a leader, uh, we often have to speak to groups of people, whether a small team, whether a small team meeting or a company-wide gathering like this, diba? We need to develop a level of intimacy in your approach that makes each individual in the room feel as if you're speaking directly to him or her. So that the trick is to eliminate the distraction of the crowd so that you can deliver your message just as you would if you were talking to a single person. You want to be emotionally genuine and exude the same feelings, energy, and attention you would one-on-one, as opposed to the anxiety that comes with being in front of people. So the ability to pull this off is the hallmark of great leadership communication. Next, talk so people will listen. So good communicators read their audience, whether it be groups or individuals. We have yung good communicators, they read audience carefully to ensure they aren't wasting their breath on a message that people aren't ready to hear. Talking so people will listen means you adjust your message on the fly to stay with your audience, what they are ready to hear and how they are ready to hear it. Droning on to ensure you've said what you wanted to say does not have the same effect on people as engaging them in a meaningful dialogue in which there is an exchange of ideas. So we have to resist also the urge to drive our point home at all costs. When your talking leads to people asking good questions, you know you're on the right track. So, kung dito, um, so, kung yung kanina, talk so people will listen, next naman is listen so people will talk. So, one of the most disastrous temptations for a leader is to treat communication as a one-way street. When you communicate, you must give people ample opportunity to speak their minds. If you find that you're often having the last word in conversations, then this is likely something you need to work on. Listening isn't just about hearing words, it is also about listening to the tone, the speed, the volume of the voice. What is being said? Anything not being said? What hidden message below the surface exists? When someone is talking to you, stop everything else and listen fully until the other person has finished speaking. When you are on a phone call, don't type an email. When you are meeting with someone, close the door and sit near the person so you can focus and listen. Simple behaviors like this will help you stay in the present moment, pick up on the cues at the other person sense, and make it clear that you will really hear what he or she is saying. Next is connect emotionally. Sabi nga, di ba, people will forget what you said and did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So, as a leader, your communication is impotent of people don't it is impotent if people don't connect with it on an emotional level. It's hard for many leaders to pull off because they feel they need to protect a certain persona. Let that go. To connect with your people emotionally, you need to be transparent, be human, show them what drives you, what you care about, what makes you get out of bed in the morning. Express these feelings openly, and you'll forget an emotional connection with your people. Prepare your intent. A little preparation goes a long way towards saying what you wanted to say and having a conversation achieve its intended impact. Don't prepare a speech. Develop an understanding of what the focus of a conversation needs to be in order for people to hear the message and how you will accomplish this. Your communication will be more persuasive and on point when you prepare your intent ahead of time. Skip the jargon. Problem is most of us overuse jargon and alienate their subordinates and customers with their business speak. So use it sparingly if you want to connect with your people. Otherwise you'll come across as insincere. Lastly, we have to practice active listening. People who listen will tend to work better. Listening is twice as important as talking, and one big important part of effective communication skills in business. Listening should not be taken for granted. So do not just sit back barely awake letting the speaker's words wash over you. The more you listen well, the better you receive the information. Do you know how to listen well? Here is how. Make eye contact with the speaker, respond appropriately, no interruptions, and examine your body language. We have to spend more time listening than we do talking. Do not answer questions with questions. Although this can, uh, yung we answer questions with questions, may mga times na we can use it, no? Avoid finishing other people's sentences. Focus more on the other person than you do on yourself. You have to focus on what people are saying right now, not on what their interests are. Reframe what the other person has said to make sure you understand him correctly. Think about what you're going to say after someone has finished speaking, not while he or she is speaking. Ask questions, never interrupt. So, here are the benefits of effective communication in the workplace. Less misunderstanding. Clarify how each employee contributes to achieving company goals without overlooking important information. Healthy workplace culture. So it develops good working relationships with employees through fair communication. So as they trust management. Non-threatening environment. Tap into employee opinions, no, as they share their thoughts, feelings, and ideas conveniently. Solve conflicts easily. So an easy way to address issues behind any conflict and turn it into something creative is, of course, through better communication or effective communication. Team spirit. Promote the desire to work towards a common goal for a smooth work environment. It also increases self-esteem. People will feel better about them socially to know their message is delivered as expected. Clear direction. Employees will know exactly what is expected from them and what steps need to be taken. Stronger teamwork. It builds rapport and trust as the team will work well through good communication. Higher employee job satisfaction. It leads to fulfilled employees who not only deliver their best but also stick around for long. And then number 10, business success. Business gains insights through reduced turnover rates as happy employees equal a successful business. We have to remember that it starts with you to create new effective habits to improve communication in the workplace. You cannot definitely ignore how you communicate. Grow to be a good communicator to have strong conversations. So let me end my slide with this quotation. Half the world is composed of people who have something to say and can't, and the other half who have nothing to say and keep on saying it.